Hey everybody, it's Dominic Vergere from the Breakdown Show, and today's guest is Nico Marcolongo. He joins Pete Turner along with the longtime friend of Pete, Kent Higginbotham, as co-host. Nico joins CAF in the spring of 2008 after 14 years of service as a United States Marine Corps officer. He's a veteran of the Iraq War and brings with him over 8 years of fundraising and event experience to benefit challenged military athletes. Nico is dedicated to supporting the needs of our troops and will lead CAF effort to mentor and provide post-rehabilitation support to American service members who have suffered permanent physical injuries in recent conflicts. You already know what to do. Go to savethebrave.org and support the Veterans Tribe. If you want to support our show, go to the breakitdownshow.com and put a little money in it. All the money goes straight back to the show. And also you can watch us on YouTube. We have great videos there. Without further ado, here comes Nico Marcolongo.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
I'm Nico Marcolongo, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
So this is going to be fun. So Nico and introducing our special guest host, Hig. Hig and I grew up together in the same little small town. And Hig, I go to Hig's class every year, Nico, and I give time back, like a full day to all of his students because we're all from the same place. And I'm sort of them from the future. And then Hig runs me through a bunch of questions. And we've done this for years and years now. And so we've stayed connected throughout our lives. And then he sends me a text one day and says, hey, you should have Nico Marcolongo on the show. And he goes through all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Veterans. I'm a veteran. He's a veteran. I'd love to support that stuff. He's like, by the way, we were friends and dorm mates back in Davis in the early 90s, back in the 1900s.
Yes. That's right.
late 1980s.
That's true, too. Yeah, even
That's
further
true.
back. Yeah.
1987.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you guys, when was the last time you guys were in the same space? How long has it been?
Oh, I remember exactly when it was. Didn't you run for ASUCD when you were at Davis?
I did. I served on the executive council.
Yeah. So the last time that I was in communication with Nico was when we were at Davis, and he was running for ASUCD, and we crossed paths. I think it was outside of Wellman Hall. I think it was called Wellman, and he was actually campaigning and canvassing at the time. People were walking up, and he was introducing himself, and encouraging them to vote for him. And he asked me if I would reach out to people on his behalf. And I happened to be in a fraternity at the time, so I kind of spread the word within my fraternity and among other fraternities as well. So that was the last time that we were in contact.
And I did win, so Hig was a big part of that.
See, it was because of me. I'll take full credit.
That's right.
Hig, what kind of guy was Nico back then? How would you describe him?
Oh, man, he was a awesome individual, positive attitude, always happy-go-lucky, and had this great ability to connect with like everyone on the dorm floor. And we had a very diverse dorm floor in terms of interests and background. And Nico got along with everyone and was able to connect with everyone. It was phenomenal.
I
Nico,
appreciate
what kind
that.
of guy was Hig?
Hig was the same. I mean, he was a good playing basketball at Davis. One of the guys, we were all new, right? This is our first time away from home. 18 years old. Hig's from Benicia. I'm from San Diego. My roommate, Bakersfield, Jeff Oliver, whose daughter just graduated from Davis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm still in touch with Jeff. And we all kind of came together. Actually, we had the first floor party in our room. I remember that. He was there. Everybody was there. And so we just got to know each other. And it was really just a bunch of kids kind of trying to find their way and really supporting one another. I don't remember any kind of animosity or arguments going on in our dorms. Everybody was really cool and got together and supported one another.
No, it was a really interesting floor in that you had so many people from so many different backgrounds, and everyone got along. And you're right, there were no conflicts that I remember or that I know of. So yeah, it was a great floor. It was a great experience.
And it wasn't like today. I mean, we didn't have our own bathrooms or anything. We shared showers. So we really got used to living with each other.
Yeah, when you guys have like a communal bathrooms and showers, was that also across sex too? Because I remember like at Berkeley, it was just the bathroom communal shower area.
Yeah, it was segregated by gender, but yeah, it's just one of those things, you know. And I think that experience at Davis was something that added, you know, when I went to the Marine Corps, as far as living together, meeting new people, getting an understanding. Hey, we all may come from different backgrounds, have different ideas, but we all can focus on the same mission. And in our case at Davis, it was just kind of finding ourselves, finding a group of people who we could talk to and relate to get through our first year in particular. And also we're all focused on getting our degrees. And then, you know, going to the Marine Corps, it was kind of something similar. It was people from all over the country, various backgrounds, coming into this environment where you got people yelling at you to make your bed and clean your rifle and all this other stuff, and just joining together and then focusing on that mission to become Marine officers. So there's a lot of parallels there.
I guess to be fair, we should ask Hig. Hey, Hig, how was Pete back then, back in the 30 years ago in the late 80s, early 90s?
Oh, Pete was just out of control, man. He had his hand in a lot of different types of pots, if you would. Yeah, he was just trying to figure things out. But Pete was always similar to you, and just being a great guy and happy-go-lucky and having a positive attitude. So he was one of my favorite people in high school.
That's a win. Hey, Nico, I learned pretty quick because I was a little kid. There was literally like one day, like so in middle school, we would all go outside and like some of us would grab a basketball and run out to a hoop, and you would claim your little court. And on occasion, Kent and I would play. But you kind of, had different groups of people that played. And then all of a sudden, Kent was too good, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I'm like, how in the world is this guy so good at shooting? Like he just got so good so fast. I learned the lesson as a little kid. Don't wait for Kent to miss, because he ain't gonna. Like, he's just going to shoot all damn day long.
And I tell you, basketball was his passion. I mean, there wasn't a day that didn't go by that I didn't see him in a tank top, basketball shirt, and his shoes. So going out there, that was his dedication. He's dedicated obviously to his studies as well, or else he wouldn't be teaching now. But basketball and school.
I totally agree with that. My freshman year at Davis, I was just all about academics. And I bet I played basketball every day. So yeah, there's no doubt about that.
And he's the first person I ever met from Benicia. I was like, Benicia, where's that? What country is that? He goes, no, man, it's in California.
Literally half an hour away from where you were.
There you go.
Yeah, the big joke was, like, when a lot of people found out I was from Benicia, their only knowledge of it was, from passing by on 680, like on their way to Davis. So they'd look over and they would see the refinery. So the big joke is they'd ask me, like, what smokestack I grew up in.
But that was interesting. Obviously you're both from Northern California. Me coming from Southern California and going north to school, it was a different experience, because there's a significant difference between North and South, especially when you start going northeast. Compared to me, I'm growing up on the beach. I went to La Jolla High School. I now live in Solana Beach, which is right on the beach. So kind of a different culture a little bit. And it was good, though. I mean, again, through our differences, we found that we do have a lot of commonalities. A lot of, hey, we all wanted to come together. We all wanted to enjoy this college experience, and we were very accepting of one another. And we were really academically minded as well. I'm pretty sure everybody in our floor, as far as I know, graduated. I don't recall anybody dropping out. I don't recall anything like that ever happen in our freshman year. Now, not to say I was a stellar student. I remember I had to repeat my music class because I think that was one I was focused on. But other than that, hey, everything went pretty well.
Were you always on a track to go into the Marine? Because so when I joined, Kent and I graduated in '87, and first off, I had no idea how to go to college. It's just not a single clue, just that I was going. And then as I worked my way through, it kind of found a major, or it kind of found me, sort of. And so then I graduated and I couldn't find a damn job anywhere. And then that's when I'm like, hey, maybe the military is my opportunity to go do something. But how did you end up in the Marines?
So when I was 6 years old, I saw, there's no kid, this is a real story. I saw the Sands of Iwo Jima with John Wayne. And I was like, that's for me. And in high school, coming out, I was considering joining the reserves. And then I was looking at, hey, maybe there's an NROTC program I could join, say, at Davis. Now, Davis had an ROTC program, but not a naval ROTC program. So I'd have to go over to Berkeley. And I was like, it sounds too complicated. So I put it off. I went to college. And then when I got out of school, after my first real job playing American football in France, that's another story, went to France, played football, came back, and was like, I've always wanted to be a Marine. I should go look into this. So I went down to the officer selection office, started going through all the procedures that I need to do, and voila, in January 1994, I'm off to OCS. So it was always in me to become a Marine, but it wasn't something that I took action on until after I graduated college. Interesting story with that. If it wasn't for the Marine Corps, I may not have graduated from college officially. And the reason I say it is because we graduated in 1991, right, Ken? So we graduated in 1991. But as I was graduating, I had an opportunity to go to a program called Davis in D.C., where I was an intern lobbyist the summer of 1991. So I couldn't file for my graduation in June. So I said, okay, what do I have to do? I'll graduate in the fall of 1991 so I can do this program. Well, I thought I filled out the paperwork, and I never did. So I go 1991, I go do my internship, I come back, I forget about it. I never picked up my diploma, whatever. It's just a piece of paper, I'm this 22-year-old kid. And then the Marine Corps, when I went to apply to become an officer, said, all right, everything looks great. We just need proof of graduation. I said, oh, no problem. So I'll just have to call Davis and have them send me my diploma. So here I am in winter 1993 calling Davis, and they're like, we have no record of you graduated. And I went, what? At that point, I was going to call Kent and say, Kent, I was there, right? And what they said was, oh, you completed your coursework. You just never filed for a graduation. So I said, okay, what do I have to do? So I filed for graduation, and I said, hey, can you backdate the diploma to June of 1991 when I actually graduated? He said, no, we can't backdate diplomas. So my diploma says winter 1993 on it. So it looks like I took 6.5 years to graduate. So Kent, as you can see, he was way ahead of me when it came to academics.
Yes. I don't remember filling out an intent to graduate. I need to check on my paperwork.
You're a fraud. I have a similar story, Nico.
Yeah.
I applied for graduation I graduated from Cal State Hayward, also in the Porter system, and this is an important part of the story. So I applied for graduation. I walked in 1993, and then I'm waiting, and whatever. It's just a stupid piece of paper, right? Like, so I'm waiting and waiting, and finally I'm like, let me just call. I call up, and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, your math was wrong. You are 8 credit hours short, and so I had to go take this storytelling class in 1990. I guess I graduated in 92. And so in 93, I had to, in the winter, I had to go take an 8-hour storytelling class to get that. It was like, in terms of like the school was like a half a unit or whatever it was to get that 8-hour satisfied thing. So I almost didn't graduate because of that, because I almost just skipped that. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I don't care. Good enough for me.
Well, I'll tell you what, the paperwork you learn real quick is so important, because if your paperwork's not squared away, forget it. And we learned that in the military.
Oh, boy.
It was pretty funny when I was coming out of infantry officers course. That's what I did. I was infantry officer, and then I augmented me and I became an intelligence officer. But started off in the infantry, and for the longest time they couldn't figure out if I was going to 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines in Camp Lejeune, or 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines in Camp Penland, or 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines in Camp Lejeune. And it turned out I was supposed to go to 2-1 here in California, but somebody finger jammed it in 1-2. They mixed it up. And so there was this, for months, they kept saying, oh, you're going to North Carolina. No, you're going to California. Finally ended up coming back here to California. But yeah, the paperwork can really, really do some damage if it's not done correctly.
At one point while deployed, this is 100% true, I became a divorced Mexican woman with kids.
Okay.
And, this is the military, Nico, right? So I'm like, hey, I'm deployed. I'm in Bosnia. I'm using a field phone. Hey, there's a problem with my paperwork. No, everything seems to be fine. I put in an IG complaint. And I said, I'm not a Mexican woman, who's divorced and has kids. And they came back and said nothing. Like, they didn't do anything. They didn't find any problem with this. And it screwed my pay up so bad. And so finally I had to prove that I'd never been married. And I'm like, how do you do that?
Well, the big thing,
I'm a dude. I don't have any kids. And, this is all screwed up. But that, and I did plenty of things on my own to screw my paperwork up, but that one was not on me.
well, that's interesting would have gotten you on is the kids, right? Because you would have collected extra money.
Yeah.
Oh, you're fine being a divorced Mexican woman, but you're getting extra money for kids. So and then it would have come back on you. So good thing you got that squared away.
Yeah, it was not easy. Kent, I want to bring Kent back into the conversation so we don't just talk about paperwork all day, but that stuff is hilarious. There are so many, like my DD-214 is a mess, and it's another one of those things I'm like, I'm not even worried about it. It's such a mess. That's like our official record of service for anybody who's not sure what a DD-214 is. Hey, Kent, when you see that Nico joins the Marines and is doing I said, what are you promoting? He gave us 2 charities. Like, this is what he does. Does that surprise you in any way at all with the guy that you knew?
The charity factor in community service, that doesn't surprise me at all. The Marines definitely surprised me. I always assumed that he would be involved in politics some way. So we've talked about how he was involved in ASUCD, so student government at UC Davis, and then he worked as an intern lobbyist. And one of the reasons why I was searching him was I was hoping that he would have some type of connect in the political world, and that I could bring him as a guest speaker potentially in my my government classroom as I do with you. I was really surprised to find that he had joined the Marines post graduation. But I'm not surprised at all that he's helping serve the needs of other people. That's not surprising.
Well, I appreciate that, Kent. And it's interesting because you're right, though. I was on track to go into the government, route. When I went to Davidson, D.C. as intern lobbyist, we're talking about getting a job there. But then a buddy of mine calls and says, hey, I played football in France, and they're looking to bring over some other Americans to come and play, and they're going to pay your way, and it'll be 6 months. And I went, gosh, when is that ever going to happen again? So that's what I did. I was like, hey, after my internship was up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go play football again. This is never going to happen again. So that's what I did. Then when I came back, that's when I started to do some soul searching. And I was like, where do I want to go? And I think getting that direction in the Marine Corps, really focusing me, that was very helpful. Now, after that, I kind of rolled into like I said, with Challenge Athletes Foundation. I'd started my own charity called Buddy Bowl, a big flag football tournament. I took it over from some guys who started in 1977, just a bunch of guys playing flag football on the beach in San Diego. I eventually started playing in it, took it over, and then in 1999, we had a helicopter crash. It killed 6 Marines and a Navy corpsman, 4 of whom were from my unit, a month before the Buddy Bowl that year. So I passed a can around. We raised $550 for the widows and orphans of the tragedy. And I said, from now on, it's football for charity. And here I am, a captain in the Marine Corps. I get married. I get a baby on the way. I'm like, I don't know everybody anymore. And what do I do to protect myself? So we incorporated as a 501c3 that would give money away to other charities. And when we did that, one of the original Buddy Bowlers, a good friend of mine, approached me and said, would you raise money for the Challenge Athletes Foundation? And I said, well, I will, but I want to establish a fund there for injured vets and first responders. That morphed into Operation Rebound. So I'd unwittingly created a job for myself 5 years before I got out of the Marine Corps. And it's the second steadiest job I ever had. Because I can't say that football in France was that steady. I figured that was only going to be one season. So here I am today. Now, as far as being politically involved, I'll tell you what, I'm not running for office per se. I did serve on my homeowners association board. I do have people prodding me. Hey, you should run for office. As a matter of fact, one of my buddies made a public person page of me on Facebook. So there's a picture of me at a podium. It has a seal of the Vice President of the United States on it. And the reason that is because my family, my wife and I, were chosen to represent military families at the Sesame Street Gala in 2009. And because we were on Sesame Street a few months before, and I can send you that episode. But so here we are sitting at this table, and it's Dr. Jill Biden and then Vice President Biden across from me. And then the head of American Greeting Cards, Robin Roberts, who's ESPN and now GMA, right? And this guy didn't know with this lady, John Legend and Chrissy Teigen. And so we're sitting there, and first thing I do is I look over at Jill Biden's plate, Dr. Jill's plate, and I see she's not eating her food. And she looks at me, "Do you want the chicken?" I'm all, "Sure." Bam, any good Marine would, right? Take the chicken off her plate, devour that. And I knew everybody at the table except for this guy, John Legend. And so I'm asking, what do you do? He's, "Oh, I sing." "Oh, really? Okay, cool. Well," he's all, "I'm going to sing tonight." "Really?" So he goes up on stage. He starts playing the piano. He's singing away. The Snuffleupagus is dancing all over the place. He comes back to the table, sits down. I just look at him and go, "You're good." He's all, "Thank you." So there's my John Legend story. But I got to speak. Of course, the vice president spoke. I got to speak. And so it looks like, I'm there at the podium. Maybe I could have been the vice president of the United States. I don't know. I'm wearing a coat and tie. One of the few times you'll see me in a coat and tie.
Kent, do you want to ask any questions? I've been doing all the hard work,
No, I can't think of any, but I will make this comment. Remember up front that I said that I find that both you guys are to be somewhat similar. And Nico was talking about taking that opportunity to go play American football in France. And that's just the type of opportunity that Pete would have taken if it presented itself. He would have been in France like that playing football.
I have an almost story about this. I was in the process of playing football in Germany as an Army guy, and it wouldn't have been professional, but it would have been like two Americans on each side. And, and you're like, let's go target these Germans and blast them, and have a great time doing it. So if I wouldn't have deployed, that was going to happen, but I deployed instead, and it's totally fine. But I was that close to doing it.
Pete, that's exactly what it was. We call it semi-pro because we were getting paid, right? We were the Les Trois Américains, right? On the team. And one of the teams that we played had a couple of Marine security guards playing on the team in Paris. So it was just one of those once in a lifetime. I'm still in touch with the guys over there. As a matter of fact, when I deployed to Bosnia, before I went downrange, we called it. This is 99. I was in Germany, and so I took a 3-day pass to go over to Tours. That's where the team was in Tours, and visit with my buddies. And some of those guys have come out to visit me since. So it's pretty cool to still be connected with them.
Hey, Nico, I have a question. If I recall correctly, when you were at Davis, you were a double major. Weren't you an international relations and Japanese major?
Actually, I was looking at I was a Chinese major, Mandarin.
Okay. I'm
rusty now. Wore Zhongwen, Mama Hu Hu. Okay. But I was going to major double. I was thinking about double majoring in Russian and China, and that just got crazy. But I minored in political science.
Oh, okay.
So, and then of course, with all the student government things I was involved in, that was that kept me pretty busy. The two legacies that I think stuck, at least for a number of years after we graduated, Kent. One was getting parking privileges for students in the faculty lot, moved from 6 p.m. to 4 p.m. And also the choice of health insurance. That was another big one, whether you want mandatory with waiver, or voluntary. I got those three things on the ballot, and they went out. Now where all that is now, I couldn't tell you, but it seems much more organized now than it was then. There aren't as many records from when I was serving, which is probably good. But no, that was an interesting time. As you probably remember, Kent, we had during that time the hunger strike, and then they established the Multicultural Center. That's still there. So those things from our time, I think, are still, still there, and some memories. Titus Hall's no longer there, though.
Yeah, they tore that down when we were. They tore that down when we were there. Yeah, I thought you were a IR Japanese major just because that was a very popular double major at the time. But I remember you walking around and practicing your foreign language skills.
Oh yeah, I try to teach it to everybody on the dorm floor. So, I will say though, Kent, I can tell you're doing well. You're teaching. What grade level are you teaching?
I teach seniors. I teach regular American government, and I teach advanced placement American government. So exciting times in regards to teaching American government.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I coach my son in Little League. He's now 17. He's playing high school ball now. But I would always bring the kids together. And once a year, we'd have our Memorial Weekend scrimmage. And I'd pull out the Constitution. And I'd tell these kids, hey, we're not here, we don't answer to a dictator or any kind of theology or something like that. It's all based on this document right here. And so I tell them, living in a republic as we have here in the United States, it's graduate level living. You have to understand your rights. You have to understand our institutions, how they work together, and what you can do to affect change. Because unlike many things, say in communist countries where it's the party and this is it and it doesn't change, we have a living, breathing document in our Constitution that may be amended, and it's all about by the people, for the people. And so it's emphasizing that, so we don't have to shoot at each other and use bullets. We can use our voice. And I think that's something that we really have to emphasize now with everything going on.
Yeah, and teaching government, like you touched on all the things that I focus on. I'm not teaching students to love the government without question. I'm not teaching them to hate the government. What I'm teaching them to do is understand the government, understand their rights. And, one of the things I implement, I think it's the Churchill quote that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
That's right.
So, how fortunate we are, but that, there are things that we can question or problems with our system of government, and how can that change, whether it be through legislation, whether it be through the amendment process. And one of the things we also focus on, unfortunately, is the partisanship that exists when we talk about Congress, for example, how that can create problems with gridlock and getting things done and getting things accomplished and moving society forward. And then also with these times, with the amount of partisanship, is just teaching students to be open-minded and listen to the other argument, and base their opinions on facts and statistics. But being able to open-minded and listen to other people and trying to come to a compromise is important. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lack of that in our current Congress and executive branch today.
We are. And I think, obviously we're using social media here for something good, right? A good open discussion. But it can be used for harm too, right? It can be used to malinform people. Hey, we may be misinforming somebody. Oh, I graduated 91. No, it's actually 93, whatever. But there's no malicious intent behind it. There is a lot going on out there that's just malinforming people. We want to put something out there that's an outright lie and foment some sort of dissent, based on that. And that's not healthy for democracy. So I think when it comes to transparency, fact checking, things like that, there's been a lot of attacks on our press right now. And then you go to the 24-hour news cycle and you realize that most of the news channels show opinion and maybe a half an hour to an hour's worth of news. I think those are the type of things that really have to be emphasized, because it confuses a lot of people. I don't think enough people are really looking at that.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like news. Like, what is a news show, and what is news commentary? And I think people have a difficult time in differentiating between those two. You talked about social media. If we compare seniors in high school now to when we were seniors, like in 1987, kids today are so much have so much more. They're exposed to information so more quickly than when we were in high school, right? We'd have to go home and watch it on the news. Now with social media, it's instant. So as a result, high school students today are much more informed about politics and what's going on in government than we were when we were their age. Now that said, the problem with that is social media and the concept of fake news. What's fake? What isn't? The term fake news has been used really loosely, right? So that's a difficult thing that we have to navigate. One of the things I talk to students about is looking at loaded language in articles. I do a comparison where I'll take a Fox News article and like a CNN article, and I'll put them side by side on the same topic and have them look at the differences. Like what quotes are being used? Are they using Republicans and Democrats or just one party? And the kids can go through and identify those differences as well as similarities. So that's one thing we have to look at and keep an eye on.
I agree. I mean, critical thought is so important. Really getting back to analyzing things. And, we live in a soundbite society, right? We're looking for more, we're looking for quicker. And I think if nothing else during this quarantine, at least it's allowed me to slow down a lot. I've read over 50 books. A lot of them are history. And just kind of, hey, just let's take a deep breath, reorganize, and then focus. And then we see the flip side too. It's isolated a lot of people as well. So I think coming out of this, we're really going to have to work together. I tell people successful communication is a key to any successful relationship. And we can have disagreement, but that disagreement, we want it to be through discourse, and we want it to be through informed discourse. And informed doesn't necessarily mean that, all of my information is 100% correct all the time. It might be in this situation it is, and then in this situation, your information is more correct. And that's where we come together for compromise. And the problem I think that we're having right now in our government is that anytime there's an effort to compromise, it's seen as some sort of betrayal of the party line. And so if you look at California as an example, you have the Democratic Party, then it's non-affiliated, and then it's Republican. So the Republican Party, as an example, in California is getting smaller. And I think that's reflective across the country of parties in general. You're getting more and more extremes in the parties because a lot of people are becoming more independent and unaffiliated with politics. And some of those people, unfortunately, are just writing off politics altogether, right? And some, like myself, are just becoming more independent. So I would foresee in the future here moving towards maybe even a 4-party system to kind of hopefully bring us back to a more middle ground.
Yeah, party alignment or having third parties emerge is really difficult, especially at the national level. If you look at their ability to participate, just like in the presidential debates and get exposure, they have to hit at least 15% in the polls, and that number was established by the Commission on Presidential Debates, and they purposely established that basically to keep third parties out. You might want to call it like the Ross Perot effect, right?
Yeah.
So that's like one problem. And the other problem is the winner-take-all system. It just makes it difficult for third parties to be able to run a competitive campaign at the national level just based on finances and being able to fundraise and run a national campaign. That's the difficulty. But if you want to look at, if we want to go back and look at the problem with partisanship and you look at George Washington's farewell address, right? He voluntarily stepped down to show that we could transition from one president to another without it being problematic. He also felt that if a president stayed in power too long, it would take on a king-like effect. But in that farewell address, he says that, partisan politics are a threat to democracy, right? So he saw this coming.
Absolutely. I think we really take a look at the Electoral College, and I'm a supporter of this Electoral College. I don't believe in that it should be, the majority totally rules over the minority. But I think that if we do, say in California, what they did in Nebraska and Maine, and apportion the electoral vote, then you're going to see more people get involved. Because if you're Republican or Green Party or whatever you are in the state of California, a lot of times you're like, well, my vote won't count, right? At least at a national level. But now if you apportion the vote, then you're going to give incentive for more people to get involved politically.
No, I agree. I think the way that Maine and Nebraska run their electoral college system is, I think all states should adopt it. I think it's the best way to do it. The winner-take-all system, just in my personal opinion, is ridiculous. You could have a close election in a state. I mean, the outcome could be, 51% Republican and 49% Democrat. And the Republican, because they won the state with 51%, is going to get 100% of that state's electoral college votes. It's much better the way Nebraska and Maine do it, where they break down the congressional districts. And if you win that congressional district, then you'll get that district's electoral college vote. Right. And then whoever wins the overall vote in those states gets the two electoral college votes that would represent the senators from that state.
And I think that'd be a good way to do it.
We've had Dave Daly on the show a number of times, and he looks at the down ballot stuff in terms of state legislatures, where we don't often focus energy, and the Republicans seem to dominate this, and they target census years because that's when the redistricting happens. Mm-hmm. And not that Democrats don't gerrymander, but that this is the opportunity at doing this. But then when you look at gerrymandering and what it takes to create a district, there's no real good solutions, right? So you have these things that drive the bigger numbers, the electoral college numbers, all these things. I think all of this stuff is sort of secondary to how do we all get along better? I've seen people that I love and care about that are smart people say they aren't going to be tolerant anymore. And then they'll say the words Nazis, but Nazis just frankly aren't a problem in this nation, as a whole, but it's easy to call everybody a Nazi. So Nico, you've been to Bosnia, a place that got torn apart by a lot of different divides, right? How do we avoid that? Because what I see right now is I don't see anything stopping us from running out of words. We're banning people from platforms. We're denying news in every direction. I'm not saying one direction or the other. How do we get a little better at being more tolerant or finding new words to work together on things?
I think we really have to emphasize in our schools with our kids, really listening to other people and where they're coming from. I have a lot of buddies who voted for Trump. I have a lot of buddies who didn't vote for Trump. And I understand their perspectives on why they supported one way or the other. Like you said, it's real easy to label somebody like a fascist or a communist or a socialist. The bottom line is, I don't think anybody, with maybe a few exceptions, I don't know, but for the most part, gets into public service, wants to do anything but help and do what's right for the country or their town or their region. For the most part. Yes, there are some people who are involved in corruption in this, and they're megalomaniacs and they just want personal power. But if you look at like we did in Bosnia, where the Balkanization, right? Where when Tito was in power, what he did was he moved certain people to certain parts of Yugoslavia. And then when everything erupted, because there was no transition of power, he was the power. There were no institutions. Then we had these ethnic conflicts that arose. So, and then we had the establishment of Croatia and Serbia and all these other places. And when I was there, they were doing what's called house cleanings. And I think you know what I'm talking about, where they're moving families from one region to another, and they're literally switching houses based on an ethnic divide. Now, that's antithetical to the American way. So I hope that we never have anything like that. So but we have institutions and a system that is set up for us to come together, work together, understand each other. We don't have to necessarily like each other, but we can respect one another. And what we've seen now is a complete lack of respect, not only for one another, but for our institutions. And so I think we really have to emphasize civics again. I mean, you're teaching AP government, Kent. I don't know if that's as popular a class. Civics is emphasized as much anymore as it used to be when we were in high school.
Well, it's a high school graduation requirement, and it always has been, right? But just like anything, if because of social media and because of the controversy and what's happening in the news, there's a bigger spotlight on it. So as a result, kids are going to be more locked into what's going on and more informed and so forth. But you're right. The big point there, and one thing I try to emphasize is, being open-minded and being able to listen to other opinions. And for some, and I'm not just talking about like high school students, for example, I'm talking about, as we've seen recently, accepting someone else's viewpoint or listening to someone's viewpoint, unfortunately, is not in the cards.
And you really have to I'm a firm believer in to whom much is given, much is expected. And when you're in a leadership position, your words really do matter, whether you're leading a family or leading a nation. Anything I tell my son, those words are going to stick at some point. He may seem like he's ignoring me now at 17, but that stuff will come back up later. When he was little, emphasizing certain things. How do my wife and I interrelate with each other in front of him or in general? What is our outlook? How do we live our lives? That has a huge influence on the next generation. So really looking at yourself and realizing, what are my motivations for doing whatever I'm doing? Is it based on narcissism, or is it based on truly, I realize that I'm an imperfect person. I'm going to do the best I can for the betterment of society. That's another reason why I'm a big fan of term limits, especially in the House of Representatives.
Oh, me too.
Because the intent was, I'm going to work my farm. I'm going to go away for a couple of years. I'm going to come back. Now Kent's going to go away, and then he's going to come back and work his farm. Now, Pete, you're up, right? So, and I understand why we don't, because if we're the first to do it, let's say California's the first to do it, then we're at a disadvantage to Nebraska or with all these other states. But I think we really have to get back to that. Serving in the House of Representatives isn't supposed to be a lifetime gig. You do it maybe 2 or 3 terms. That's why it's a 2-year term, right? And a senator is a 6-year term, because we want one house to be a little more, a little slower, say, on when it comes to legislation, ponder things, maybe think a little more and the House of Representatives is supposed to be a little more, hey, it's the people. It's really pedal to the metal.
Yeah, the House is supposed to, respond to popular passions, right? They have to be responsive to the people. If they're not, those 2-year terms are so short, they'll get voted right out. Because of the 6-year term, the Senate is much more insulated. And you're right, the Senate's supposed to slow down and go, hey, is this really what we want to do, right? They're more insulated because of the 6-year term. I want to say it was like Jefferson who used the phrase like the Senate is the saucer that cools the House cup, right? Saying that the Senate can be calmer and cooler in their reaction. They don't have to respond to popular passions, which could be wrong, right?
I wouldn't mind seeing some kind of stratification on, hey, you've been here for a while and now you have $400 million in your wealth. It's time for you to go away and let somebody else come in here. So I would say wealth limits too, because you can't just enrich yourself all the time. I don't know of a single politician who's been there for more than 20 years who isn't, a tens of millionaire, if not hundreds of millionaire. And that just, that doesn't do anybody any good, because then this is a money-making machine and you don't want to let go of it. And obviously when we can turn on a dime and spend money and effort on impeaching a president, but we can't work on medical care. I mean, things that people actually care about for real, like a stimulus package to help people who can't pay rent. All of these things that can all wait. But here, this other thing is that tastes good, that feels good, can happen in an instant. Now, this is not an endorsement of the president. It's just when something is desperate for them and they want to do it, it happens. Meanwhile, there's folks out here who are, unemployed, can't pay rent, are trying to figure out what's going to happen next. It's, they're making too much money. All those folks all get paid all the time. They haven't been furloughed at all, and there's a problem when they don't have that financial pain that they're forcing on everybody else.
Yeah, money in politics. That's something, when they passed Citizens United, for example, and it really, and I understand corporations, they say corporations are people. Corporations do a lot in this country, right? They're an engine, they're an economic, but they are soulless entities that move towards profit. That's their bottom line. What is going to help me grow? Mm. And they have such a strong voice. When you give them that power to infuse money into these campaigns, now you have an unfair advantage away from the people, in my opinion. So, Kent, I think you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah, the Citizens United case, right? That is just the Supreme Court recognized, I think they called it like corporate personhood, that corporates have the same rights as people. But yeah, the creation of super PACs and allowing individuals to run their own campaigns independent of the candidate and spend as much money as they want. The problem with that is we have to ask ourselves now, does that cause an upset of the equities in terms of democracy? Does it give someone that has extreme wealth, does it give them more power to impact an election other than just by voting, right?
How about Mike Bloomberg jumping onto that debate stage for $100 million? Like, don't ask me to take anything serious once that happens. Like it's complete compromising of an entire party when that happens.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. Can we talk about charity now instead of politics? I'd really love to hear what Nico has to say.
I didn't come on this show to talk politics. I've been talking about it for like forever. So
we did great. I'd love that we got a chance to have a very calm conversation about it. There's a lot of value in that. Hey, Nico, tell us about your charity work.
Sure. So, like I said, Buddy Bowl, it's a flag football tournament. Hey, maybe we bring it to Benicia.
All right.
When this thing dies down a little bit, it'd be great. It's just a lot of fun. We have a wheelchair bracket. We play in the gym or out in the parking lot. We've got brackets for every, you have two teams, we get a bracket for you. And so that's just a vehicle to raise money, go across the United States, meet people. It is interesting. Some of the stereotypes come out a little bit. If I'm in the Boston area having a Buddy Bowl, some of that kind of, hey, stereotypical Bostonian kind of in your face stuff. That's true a little bit, not to the extreme, but a little bit. Then you go to Indiana, we had a Buddy Bowl. Everybody's mellow. Yeah. playing out in the fields with the pastures around us. But it's just a great time. And now, at the Challenge Athletes Foundation, what we do is we empower individuals who have a permanent physical disability lead active lives through sports. My program is for injured veterans and first responders, police, fire, paramedics. And what we do is we don't tell them, hey, you have to do this particular sport and support them. I ask them, what is it that you want to do? What are your goals? And we support everything from acrobatic plane flying to Zumba dancing and everything in between at every level. So, for example, I got a firefighter who broke his back. He's paralyzed in Keller, Texas. He flies those Red Bull event, acrobatic plane things. We bought him a wing and we bought him an engine for his plane. And so he goes out there and he flies. I got a guy in Puerto Rico who was blown up several times on deployment, and he enjoys Zumba dancing. So we paid for his Zumba certification. So now he can teach Zumba and make a living off of it. He found that by dancing, he started getting some of his coordination back. that he had lost in those explosions. We have a number of Paralympians who we support. Now that's the 1%, right? But it's very expensive for somebody to go compete at that level. So we provide equipment, we provide travel, we provide training for whatever sport they want to do. It's really about, our motto at Operation Rebound is front line to finish line, whether that's riding bikes to your kids, the winning gold at the Paralympics, and everything in between.
I love it. What's the money that you guys raise for Buddy Bowl? Where does that go?
We give that to a number of charities. Part of it is Operation Rebound, but also like if we go to a town and there's a local effort that supports military, law enforcement, or children's related charities, we'll also give to that as well. Because we want to, really want to get the communities involved. We want it to be a grassroots effort. You know, when I tell people, hey, this is your Buddy Bowl, I'm just here to facilitate it. So the one in Millis, Massachusetts is a little different than the one we do in San Diego. One big difference is we play on the beach here in San Diego. The one in Pittsburgh is a little different, you know. So it's all about what they want it to be. And, you know, one guy's, hey, can we play 4-on-4? I'm like, play 4-on-4. It's normally 7-on-7, but it doesn't matter. These are the parameters. The bottom line is nobody gets injured. Everybody has a good time. Now, everybody's going to be hurting because if you're like me and you're 52 now and you're running around on a football field, you're going to be feeling it the next day. But nobody gets injured. Everybody has a good time. It's for a worthy cause.
I love it. Yeah, my hips and shoulders hurt already just thinking about playing football. And I'm hoping that in Kent, where Kent and I grew up, it's really hilly. And so no matter where you play, even in the lower part of town, you always played on some kind of a hill, you know. And so it was like you had to sort out who had the uphill side. There was a lot of rotating and everything. And then like on my street, if the ball started rolling, you may not catch it for a while because you had to have good sprint speed to catch up. So Buddy Bowl is cool. So everybody can go to buddybowl.org to work on setting something like that up with you guys. And that link is right there at the bottom of the screen. If you're on the podcast, I look in the show notes and the Buddy Bowl link will be there. It's simple. It's buddybowl.org. And definitely talk to Nico about that. By the way, Nico's super easy to find. Nico Marcolongo. Just keep typing O's in and he will come up in LinkedIn or wherever. But then here's the Challenge Athlete org. Challengedathlete.org is the website. And again, on the podcast side, we'll have those notes in there too as well. But look, all three of us, when we were younger, played a lot of sports. And I know it was good for me and my high energy self. And, you know, I had a basketball in the back of the car. I had a mitt and a bat. I was ready to go. And I'm sure I had a football, various pairs of cleats. I mean, I was playing pick up this, pick up that all over the place. And it definitely helped to keep me out of trouble, you know, for the most part. And it sounds like you had a similar kind of upbringing, Nico.
Absolutely. I was out there playing sports all the time, playing football, baseball, you name it. Was never a good basketball player. But but I started playing a little bit more when I was in the Marine Corps. It was a lot of fun, you know, and we talk about sports and the importance of it, getting out and being active. You know, insurance does not cover running prosthetics, nor do they cover sports chairs. So the vets, for the most part, the vets themselves get their adaptive equipment through the Department of Veterans Affairs if they have a service-connected injury. And then we'll pay for things like travel and instruction and things like that. Of course, the first responders don't have that. So through Operation Rebound, we get them hand cycles and things that they need. But if you look at kids, you know, in Challenge Athletes Foundation, we support people all over the world of all ages. Insurance coverage won't cover that running prosthetic. And we think a kid has a right to play and we have an obligation to help them play. So we pay for these things and they're not cheap. You know, if you're going to go out and pay for a running prosthetic on your own, it could cost like $35,000. We have a great partner in OSA Prosthetics that helps us defray a lot of that cost. And we provide running prosthetics to kids across the country. And to see them when they come out to our event, our CAF Community Challenge, which takes place in October, we plan on doing it again. We did a virtual event this year. We're planning on being back in person by the fall. To see these kids running around and having a great time, you realize that you're doing the right thing. And it's really good for some of my vets too, who might be new, maybe newly injured, and they come out. What can I do? What can I do? And they see a kid missing 2 legs and 2 running prosthetics run by, and they go, "Okay, I'm going to give this a try." Or they see one of my vets, 96-year-old Albert Bucarelli, lost his leg fighting the Germans in 1943 when he was 18 years old.
He hasn't found him yet?
That's right. Got one leg blown off above the knee. Came out to our event, gets on a spin bike, and he's go, go, go. You know, some of these younger vets see him and go, all right, Albert's doing this. Maybe I'll give it a try. So it's all about, you know, showing people what the possibilities are, seeing something in them they may not see in themselves, and giving them the resources to go out and do it. It's all about empowering, not enabling. We want to provide the resources they need, and then we want to see them excel from there.
I love it. Kent, anything in closing you want to say to Nico or to anybody else, or bring anything up?
Well, Nico, man, I want to say it's great seeing you after all these years. So let's stay in touch moving forward. I would like to encourage everyone to register to vote if you haven't done so, and encourage your friends and family members to register to vote as well, and plan on being a lifelong voter.
Amen to that.
Nico, anything in closing?
Hey, I just want to say thanks again for having me on the show. Kent, thanks for looking me up. I know I'm not necessarily holding office right now, but this was a great conversation. You know, something that I tell people whenever I'm giving a talk to a class, we've got to realize that it starts with humility, because without humility, we're not going to have the ability to really communicate with each other. And if we don't have that ability, we're not going to have empathy. And without empathy, we're going to lose our humanity. So it's really important every day I get up and I ask, you know, what are my motivations here? And am I doing it out of humility? Because humility is not a natural human trait. It's something that must be practiced.
And I'll just say in closing, if you're already a voter, go out and get involved. Write letters. Get someone who you don't know to do it with you. Get on a committee. Your government is desperate for you to be involved. Take them up on it. Go ahead and volunteer for something. All right. Let me sign off 1 sec, fellas. Stand by.